Hello, everyone. Anyone able to hear me?
Yes, you are.
Great. So we will start it in a moment. I'm just waiting for a couple of more minutes so that everyone can get a chance to join, and then we'll begin. Maybe an. Okay, I think I have my YouTube open here. All right. So we'll wait for 4 to 5 minutes more so that everyone can join. Yeah, I can see Sunil Gulia. You are somewhere on the sky.
Yes, Niladri, actually, I took this picture when I was in aircraft, so I'm sitting in sky.
Great.
Actually, I like to travel a lot, but
Uh,
due to COVID-19, we are locked at home.
all right. So you are from which place?
I'm from Qatar. By
Okay.
birth I'm from India, but I'm in
Okay.
Qatar from last 6, 7 years, and in Middle East from last 17 years.
Okay. Great. So we'll wait for 3 more minutes. People are already started joining. We'll wait for 2 more minutes and then we'll begin.
Hello, Dilip here.
Hey, Jadip. Yeah, we are waiting for 1 more minute and then we'll begin.
Hi, Niladri.
Hey, who's this speaking?
Paul Akene.
Hi, Paul. Okay. Okay, so I think we can start now. I believe few of you already know me earlier. Few of you may be interacting with me for the first time. We have kind of 23 people right now in Zoom, and I can see 13 people started watching at our YouTube live. So we'll start talking about this Nexus framework, and we'll try to have it little interactive in between. So everyone, if you are already using Zoom, you know where is that yes button, no button. Anyone have worked on Nexus framework earlier? You can click on the yeah, Kanika, great. Okay. All right. So let's talk about something on the Nexus framework before we jump into. In few places, I'll not be able to respond to your chat. Maybe at some point of time, we can take a logical break where we can go for question answers. And whoever is watching from YouTube, welcome to our channel. Thank you for watching them. And I'll go for your all questions from the chat windows. So before we start, Nexus framework is one of framework that is from scrum.org, and it's for scale. I don't have very detailed experience on Nexus framework. The reason behind this webinar is I got many requests and they wanted to know about what Nexus framework is. And I tried to accumulate few informations and made some knowledge sharing. Maybe few of you already have worked in very details on Nexus framework, so you can help me out on understanding some of the areas if there is a gap, or maybe help me out on responding few questions. So this is webinar. We want to have it a learning session, not only for you, for me as well. Let's begin and try to think about what exactly the Nexus framework is that I have actually captured. Okay, so when I'm talking about Nexus framework, these are three primary points that we need to talk about. Nexus, it's a framework to scale your product development, and this is the fundamental of this framework is on Scrum. We have, or we need to think about the few roles that we have, the events that we have, and the Nexus artifacts. So Nexus events, Nexus roles, and Nexus artifacts that we will be primarily focusing on. So let's try to understand how these roles, events, and artifacts are connected with defined rules that we have. From a fundamental of this framework, this is actually came from scrum.org, and this framework is developed by Kane Skewerg from scrum.org. So let's begin to understand this particular diagram where we can see that there are 9 different teams. That framework says you can have 3 to 9 teams, but all the teams will be having a single product backlog, and we'll try to see how those single product backlog can be accommodated into 9 different teams. There is one thing you may have noticed who have already worked for, that every team we have Scrum Master, product owner, and development team, and we'll try to enhance this diagram the course we will be proceeding forward. So as of now, when you talk about scale agile, scale, I'm not talking about safe, any agile practices where you need to scale up. The reason behind is you have multiple teams and you need to integrate or synchronize all the teams with some rules and some facts. So this is one of the framework where they suggest if you want to go for an Nexus framework, 3 teams is minimum, maximum go for 9. In between, you can take something for working on this framework. So let's try to understand that all these backlog, how come those are connected with individual teams. Before we go into backlog, when we talk about any scale agile, the dependencies are very important aspect, because why we want to define rules or facts, because there are interdependencies with multiple teams working on one common product. So a good team structure can reduce the dependencies. So what we have requirement, we have domain knowledge, we have software and test artifacts. For requirement, we can think about on the dependencies perspective, there are overlapping requirement across teams. Effect of work from one team to another team is there are domain knowledge is spread across multiple teams, and or sometimes one team have a specific domain knowledge and another team have a specific software and test artifacts.
Hey Niladri, you are not audible. Niladri, Niladri, you are not audible.
Niladri, we cannot hear you. Niladri, we cannot hear you.
Hello, Nidhi. We are not able to hear you.
Niladri, we cannot hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now. You were not audible from last 4 minutes.
Okay, I just saw that few of the messages coming from somewhere. Okay, let me go back. I'm not sure till what time you actually have heard me. Okay, so
We lost you when you were just getting into domain dependencies.
all right. Okay, so I'll come back to there and we'll continue from there. So when you're talking about domain knowledge, um, domain knowledge is something where we have teams working on different domains, maybe for one particular product. There may be different domains we have. For an example, there is a big product, someone is working on .NET area, someone is working on the ERP area, so those are actually kind of component based segregations, but maybe within ERP they have someone looking into a finance area, someone is looking into payroll area, someone is looking into some other domains. That domain segregations can also be possible. And when we are talking about software and test artifacts, we have backlog items, test scope, and integration scope. So all of those artifacts may have dependencies from team to team. So we have multiple teams, and within multiple teams we have those dependencies. And the reason behind talking on those dependencies is sides after the team structure is, if we able to work on team reorganizations, keeping those areas of requirement, domain knowledge, and software and test artifacts will very much important for understanding how these dependencies can be well managed. We'll try to understand that in details when we'll go into a little ahead. Let's try to understand this framework. So when I'm talking about this framework, this is a very simple scaled framework where you will be having product backlog, a single product backlog for all the teams. We'll be working with sprint planning for Nexus, sprint backlog for Nexus. Then we'll do 3 to 9 Scrum teams daily Scrum call, and then we'll go for Nexus sprint review, and then finally we'll go for integrated increment. Every day they will go for a Nexus daily scrum and followed by a team daily scrum. In your Nexus sprint planning, you can see there is a one Nexus sprint planning and multiple team sprint planning. We'll try to understand how exactly that's happened. Nexus retrospective, I just have only 3 stage. Nexus is doing something, then sprint team is doing something, then again coming back to Nexus. But in sprint review, I just have a single sprint review. We'll explore that. But over here, let's try to understand this diagram. Multiple Scrum teams working together. Multiple Scrum teams create integrated increment. This is based on the Scrum. The root or fundamental of Nexus framework is based on Scrum guide. Right, more focus they do on the dependencies with the integrated team, more focus on synchronizations between teams, and deliver at least one done increment every sprint. So when we're talking about in Scrum, we might have heard about that we used to deliver an increment at the end of every sprint, but over here we are delivering one done increment at the end of every Nexus sprint, or end of one Nexus will be the right statement. All right, so we'll talk about a little more about the roles we have. So as you can see from this particular role, there are multiple product owner that we have over there, and we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams and one Nexus integrated teams. Nexus integrated team also have Nexus integration team members, Scrum Master, and product owner. They used to do coordinate, coach, and supervise. One important questions what I am asking here, how many product owners do we have here? I can see all of the team used to have a product owner when we were working on Scrum. But once you go into Nexus, Nexus promotes only one product owner. So you will not be having a team specific product owner. You will be having only one product owner that will be primarily belongs to your Nexus team, and from the Nexus team, that product owner will serve all the teams as well. So we'll try to understand more about roles, how that one product owner working with a backlog that will be used by multiple teams. So let's assume that we have 3 to 9 Scrum teams and one integrations or Nexus team over here. So my Nexus team have a product owner, a Nexus Scrum Master, or one or more Nexus integration team members. What exactly my 3 to 9 teams responsibility is? They are delivering increment of potentially shippable product every sprint. So every team, they are working on some commitment. They are delivering that commitment and at the end of the every sprint. Now, once they have delivered, that needs to be going to the integration team, and then integration team, they ensure the integration combines work from Scrum team is used every sprint. The Nexus integration team is also work on coaching, consulting, dependencies awareness, some work from product backlog. And all those actually come back once the integration is done, that come back to team if there are any integration issues that needs to be resolved by the respective team. Right, everyone, any questions so far over here? You can ask me. I'll not be able to go into YouTube. Okay, I see YouTube only options that we lost audio, but I believe you got the audio back now. Anyone over here, do you have any questions? Am I audible now?
Yes, you
I
are.
believe, yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Neeladri,
yes.
one quick question.
Yeah.
In the dependency screen, you are saying test scope, and would you explain that?
Okay. So see, let me go back there. When I'm talking about the test scope is not only scoped for one team. Maybe some functionalities needs to be developed. That test scope should not be widely distributed between multiple teams. Maybe few area. You will always try to minimize the dependency. So whenever you are thinking about marking some stories is verified, that needs to be go for a testing. And the testing, if you can plan it, can be resolved by one team or minimum number of teams. That's how you will be resolving the dependencies. So for an example, one functionality needs testing from multiple teams, if your team is structured in that a way, you will be having too much of interdependencies, and that will be a problem. You getting my point?
Yes,
Hello?
Niladri, thank you.
Okay, I can see one questions from Bevav. How are integration to resolve? Are they added to the product backlog? And how does team manage to work on them with respect to sprint? So whenever you are going for an integration integrations happen at the end of every iterations or every sprint. And when there are, so it's all defined on the practice based on their guidance. They have not mentioned any other backlog, but you can create as it when you are having a product backlog, you can highlight a items on your product backlog, maybe an integration issue or non-functional requirement that needs to be resolved. Some of the integration issues may needs to resolve immediately. When you are doing the integrations, the integration happens maybe, let's say, after 2 weeks, when all the Scrum teams have completed their work, and during the integrations they found there are some issues happening from team A and team D. So that information will go back to team A and D. They will identify, okay, they needs to resolve some code. If that is immediate resolutions, they can do it then and there. If they think, okay, that needs little more time, they needs to put it in a backlog, it will go into the main product backlog, because over here we have only one product backlog, and in every product backlog we'll be having different identifications that which team will be working on that, and we'll try to look into that. Okay, Beva, does that answer your question? Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Niladri, to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So the integration would be added to the main product backlog, right?
See, product backlog is a list of work where we will be working. When I'm talking about integration is or your build code needs to be integrated, and your final product backlog will be marked at this is you may have a workflow states where it says, okay, this is now integrated, and it will be go for your deployment pipeline. If you are going for an example, if you have automated DevOps, it does not need to be wait for the integration at the end of the sprint. It can happen in between as well.
Okay, but my question is like where to put that task or a integration story or like a thing in a product backlog. That is what does my concern is. Where to track it?
Is not a story. Integration is a practice that every team they are working on that needs to be integrated, maybe through the automations that already have built in. If there is any specific work needs to be done to integrate that, that can come as a technical spike or explore any kind of enablers or non-functional requirement from your backlog, and you can commit it as a part of your sprint.
Okay, fine, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Niladri, just one. Niladri, just one.
May I add one line here to Santosh's question?
Yeah.
Santosh, basically integration is a continuous job. And if there is some specific activity on continuous job for integration, that get added to your sprint backlog, and you need to complete it during sprint itself. Because by minimum end of sprint, we must have integrated increment from all team. That is a short answer.
Right.
So
thank you.
So do you say that it's part of the continuous integration which you're taking care of in the sprint?
Yes, and basically that is what Nexus team do during sprint. That is the responsibility of Nexus team in Nexus framework, that they make all integration dependency work transparent to everyone. But who do integration? Still Scrum team do those integration.
This is part of your
team.
So you can say that this is part of your DoD then.
Yes,
see, DoD definitely you have a different sets of DoD. For a sprint commitment, you may have a different DoD. For your Nexus team, they will be having a different DoD for their integration areas. So DoD go for each team may have a different sets of DoD. Your Nexus team may have a different sets of DoD. And Nexus team's primary job, as mentioned, that their primary job is one of the responsibilities take care of all those integration is happening as a continuous process. It's always a good practice that you do this integration continuously. Even if you're on third day or fourth day, some of the stories might have completed. If it is integratable, integrate them. So we'll talk about those details, how the integration is coordinated between the teams and Nexus team in some of the upcoming slides. All right, so let's go ahead. I can see one of the questions from YouTube. The product backlog is shared among all teams. Yes, that's shared among all the teams, and we'll quickly look into that, how exactly that's happened. So let's go ahead and try to look into this. Is I think we just talked about, and the teams take care of the integration. Now, Nexus integration team member, who are they? So we may have some product owner, sorry, we definitely have a product owner, we have a Scrum Master, and few of the team members, those may be dedicatedly working for that particular Nexus team or Nexus integration team. Maybe some of the team members who are actually coming from the teams that currently we have, they may come from the individual team members and become participate as a Nexus team member. So the team composition may change over time. Some maybe you realized, okay, as of now we have these many people. After some times, if that needs to be changed, that can be done. Now, one thing, when we think that these team members are actually contributing to the team, this team one member have some responsibilities for the team and have some responsibilities for the Nexus, but the preference on their responsibility should always go for the Nexus integration team. So Nexus integration, they should not be ignoring Nexus integration team over individual Scrum team responsibility. That is more important. Your primary focus, if you are contributing to the Nexus integration team, you should focus not to neglect anything on the Nexus integration team. Your first preference is Nexus integration team, and then your second preference is the Scrum team. So if you think the responsibilities you have, the amount of work you have can be balanced out in both the teams, you may fit for working as the dual role. Right now we'll go for the next plan, what we are actually talking about. Who is the product owner and what is their responsibility? So if I talk about the product owner, so we have one single product backlog in our one Nexus. We have our Scrum Masters and Nexus integration team member and product owner, who is part of your Nexus integration team. They work closely with the all Scrum team, and this product backlog is actually a shared backlog. So responsibility of a product owner is maximize the value of product work performed and work integrated. Is a member of Nexus integration team and accountable for managing the product backlog. Now, if I look into Scrum Master, who is the Scrum Master? So Scrum Master, you can see all these Scrum Masters we have for individual team, and also we have for a Nexus team. So Scrum Master, all Scrum Master at team level are doing the pretty much same job as Scrum Master, but the Scrum Master at Nexus integration team ensure that Nexus framework is understood and intact or enacted. So the Scrum Master at the Nexus team or Nexus integration team have a special role. Some point of time, what happen is one of the Scrum Master play a dual role, sometime as a Scrum Master for one team or one or two team, and sometimes Scrum Master of a Nexus team as well. So may play a dual Scrum Master role and Nexus integration team and Scrum team. What are the artifacts we follow? So primarily, if we know at the Scrum level, we have three artifacts. We have product backlog, we have sprint backlog, and we have a product increment. Now at the Nexus, we have single product backlog. We have a Nexus sprint backlog which assist with the transparencies. So whenever we are working on sprint, there will be, each team will be having a sprint backlog, but Nexus will also have another sprint backlog. We'll talk about what exactly will that. During refinement, provide the indicators about which team will work on this. So when we are talking about this product backlog, how do we identify which product backlog item is for team A and which product backlog item is for team B? That can be identified during when we are doing the backlog refinement. At that point of time, we identify where this which team will be best suitable for this one, and we'll go into that sprint planning event to find out what exactly the process of that. Now when we're talking about the artifacts, we have product backlog, we have sprint backlog, and have integrated increment. Product backlog, a single product backlog for the entire Nexus. Nexus sprint backlog, this is a composite of product backlog items for the sprint backlog of the individual Scrum team. And when I'm talking about integrated increment, this is a current sum of all the integrated work completed by Nexus. It must be usable and potentially shippable or releasable, and it must meet the DoD. So when I'm talking about your Nexus sprint backlog, they have to pass through a definition of done to get the integrated increment. This is what we are talking about. When we're talking about product backlog and Nexus sprint backlog, they will also have all the dependencies and the team sprint mapping, and that's how we build up the transparency in the Nexus framework. We'll go for a few of the events and ceremonies to find out what are the events we have in Nexus. So if I'm talking about regular Scrum events, everyone, you might have worked on the sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint retrospective, sprint review, and backlog refinement. So those are the regular Scrum events. But if I'm actually going into Nexus, we have two different levels. One at a Nexus level, another at a team level. So if I am doing a backlog refinement, the backlog refinement will do sometime at the Nexus level, and the same backlog refinement will go for individual team level. We'll go for Nexus sprint planning and sprint planning at the team level. We go for Nexus daily Scrum, and the daily Scrum will also happen at the team level. But when we talk about a Nexus sprint review happens only for one event where all the team members and the Nexus teams connects together and have that. Then Nexus sprint retrospective will go for Nexus sprint retrospective and sprint retrospective as well. Let's try to understand what exactly this Nexus events, the refinement is actually happen. What we do in this particular event, we decompose product backlog into items. Maybe some of the times we have a very bigger story, or some of the work item is very bigger. We decompose into small items so that we can accommodate in a single team and complete in one sprint. We identify dependencies and categorize. So there are few categorizations of dependencies. We'll talk about what are those. And we also find out what is the sequence of build it will go for, so that we can integrate it properly. Those are the different categories we have. The build sequence, based on the build sequence, based on the people they are working on, based on the skills, these are the different categories of dependencies that we will be identifying. Now, team identifications. When we are doing a backlog refinement, once we have broke it down or decomposed into a smaller item, we'll identify which team it will be worked on, and we'll continuously do this refinement and for one item, one product backlog item, until become independent for one single team. So we should not be having one story worked by two different teams. We'll be broke it down into smaller stories until it's not become independent for one single team. We also try to minimize the conflicts. We will be negotiate on our user stories, and if there is some conflicts, the team member who is participating on backlog refinements, they will try to work on that and minimize any kind of conflict. This backlog refinement is a continuous process. It's not just we will be doing once in a sprint or something like that. It's a ongoing activities. Irrespective of the sprint durations, we'll continuously doing that refinement, make our backlog items ready for upcoming sprints. This is who participates. Representatives from each team, they come and attend, and they take back the information from their team specific information to their respective team. And after that, sprint will go for that kind of refinement. We'll try to understand that in next step. So when we do a refinement, this is one board that you can actually see that we are creating multiple items, and those items are, we are identifying the dependencies. This is a visual board. You can use any kind of visual board, but this is one example where you can see that we are identifying the dependencies with colors. So blue color is people related dependencies, where team C will be working on item number 6, have a dependencies on item number 5 working by team B, and the dependency type is people. So 6 and 5 is a dependency. Similarly, you may have different kinds of categories of dependencies that you can identify when you are having your refinement, so that it will be much more easier from your dependencies board to visualize how exactly the dependencies are mapped in a Nexus board or Nexus dependencies board. Okay, I'll go for the sprint planning, but before I go for the sprint planning, let's see if anyone have some questions here. I can see Prakash, you raised your hand.
Niladri, let's assume any of the activity or any of the task is delayed by team A, which is the dependency task for team B. So how they are going to handle it?
See, whenever you are identifying your dependencies, that identifications have identified on your refinement, how they will be handling it. So dependencies, based on your dependencies, you will be picking your stories or prioritize your stories, that so that you can successfully complete. Now, if for an example, if I have people, let's say this is 8 and 9 is an external dependencies we have. So this is, they have identified during your when you are doing your refinement, you make a high level planning. This is what will go for sprint 1, this is what will go for sprint 2, and this is what will go for sprint 3. That planning will influence based on the dependencies. If there is some dependencies, for an example, if story 1 needs something from story 9, otherwise story 1 cannot be complete. So the planning of story 1 may go into the later sprint after where we have planned for 9. So that's how you plan your upcoming few sprint, that this is how the dependencies can be resolved by planning it. Now that's one way of resolving your dependencies. There may be, you can actually resolve the dependencies by changing the work structure or assigning the stories to a same team. If they think, okay, one team is depend on another team, can we have both the work by the same team, so that they can plan it accordingly and resolve it. So there are many ways you can resolve those dependencies. Even so, it's not only for Nexus. Whenever you are working on simple Scrum also, if you have some dependencies, how do you plan? When you do backlog refinement, you already identified, okay, these are the different dependencies you have. Now you work with the different team, take a mutual consent that will you be able to work on the same team. So this 9 is actually having a same team, or this blue one, we are same sprint, they are mutually agreed that, okay, we know we have a dependencies, but we will work together, collaborate together and resolve it. If something that cannot be done, then you can actually plan it one by one sprint. So there are many ways of resolving dependencies, right, Prakash? Is that answer your question?
No, but
Yes,
yeah.
that's Niladri, that is the ideal scenario. I'm asking like that we have planned all the dependencies in such a way that looks like we'll be able to finish it on the time on the or sprint release. But I'm asking like let's assume the expected task was should be finished by your week 1 in the 3-week sprint, and which is not finished by team A. Now they are saying that they will take 1 more week. So the dependent team, which, which was expecting that thing will come on the end of week 1, now it will come at the
Okay,
end of
I
week
got
2.
your point. So what you are talking about, if that is not about the how you will plan, if you face that there was a dependencies, the other team have not completed it, right?
Right.
And right, so that every day you are having your daily stand up, and you are actually taking care of all the integrations and dependencies issues. So it will not be a case that if you are following your dependencies in and following your integrations at Nexus sprint planning, you will not be realizing it after 7 days. You will be realizing maybe 1 day or on 1 day delay or 2 days delays, and then you can have enough time to respond it back. That team may need some support, that team may needs to realize they need to work on that. So it will never be a case that they will be realize it after 7 days. And that is why you are going for every day a daily stand up at a Nexus level, at a team level as well.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so when I'm talking about now, I got one chat window. Someone see, I'll not be able to go into. Okay, I sorry, I forgot to click on the recording, but I'm going on YouTube Live. That will be saved there. All right, so I'll go for. Oh, sorry, Nexus sprint planning. Let's try to understand the Nexus sprint planning. Coordinate the work of a Scrum teams in a Nexus for a single sprint. Product owner provide the priority decision. Appropriate representative from each team validate and make adjustment, and all members should join to minimize communication gap. So let's try to understand how exactly that's happened. So we have a Nexus sprint planning and we have different teams, and I have just color code the team so that we can identify it little in that way. And in my Nexus team, I have these color people, the representatives from each team. They are attending the sprint planning. Now, once they have talked about, so coordinate the work of all Scrum teams and Nexus for a single sprint. That is what they are doing. PO is provide their priority decisions. Okay, if someone is not talking, can you please go on mute? Okay, now once this team have done the sprint planning, they needs to bring back the informations to their respective team, and team will do the team level sprint planning from the informations they got it from the Nexus sprint planning. Once they are done, they will define the team sprint goal. Every team will be defining their sprint goal, and Nexus will be bringing up the Nexus sprint goal, and also they will highlight or update the dependencies board from different team that okay, based on right now the situations of the dependencies they have done, they may update it there. So that is high level how the sprint planning is happen at a Nexus level. Now, when I'm talking about the daily Scrum call, I'm just talking about the Nexus event. So Nexus daily Scrum, appropriate representatives from each team, the current stage of the integrated team, they will come. They identify the integration issue. So now if you're talking about the dependencies that create issues on the dependencies that may needs to be highlighted. Then identify newly discovered cross-team dependencies. If there were some dependencies that is blocking or the cross-team impacts, you're getting my point. So at the Nexus level, this is definitely needs to be talked about, and they primarily talk about was the previous day's work successfully integrated? If not, why not? That means our target is to integrate every day, not only at the end of the sprint. What information need to be shared across team in the Nexus? So is there some informations we need to share with the teams? For an example, there is some dependencies I have with another team and they are not resolving. That information needs to be highlighted. You can see representatives from each teams are coming over here. Now, what new dependencies or impact have been identified? This is all discussed during a Nexus daily Scrum. And once your Nexus daily Scrum is done, this development team, they inspect progress toward the Nexus goal. All this information is bring from the Nexus daily Scrum call to the team, and each team, they go for a daily Scrum meeting or daily stand-up meeting for their team level. And that is how all these informations collected at one place and distributed within all the teams. I see one chat window. Before I proceed, can we say Nexus framework also a Scrum at scale? If not, how different they are? I don't have explore Scrum at scale. I'm not sure what exactly the Scrum of scale is. You can help me understand if it is related to Scrum at scale or not. I still have not explored that.
Niladri, maybe I can give my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scrum at scale is a framework which is defined by Scrum.inc, which is it's been run by Jeff Sutherland. So he has contributed to the Scrum at scale, and Scrum at scale is completely different from Nexus. Because Nexus is still limited to mid-size organization, but Scrum at scale is something which was inspired by a Spotify framework,
Okay.
and they have also taken some good stuffs from Safe, and it works at a different level. It is much more scalable than Nexus.
Okay, then I think because that answer your question, right?
Niladri, I would like to add one more information.
Sure.
Nexus is perfectly fit for the development. It's most of the work is on the bottom-up intelligence, focusing on the developers. But in the case of Scrum at scale, the above developers level, they focus on like how the information move from the CEO, from the Scrum of Scrum to Scrum of Scrum of Scrum to Scrum of Scrum of Scrum to CEO. It's mostly, in my personal opinion, it perfectly fit for the manufacturing and other industries. Thanks.
Right. I think Anant also asked something. Is anything like Scrum of Scrum with Nexus? See, there are many frameworks like Discipline Agile Delivery or Large Scale Scrum, Scrum at Scale, Scrum of Scrum. I still have not worked on Scrum of Scrum. Anyone, if you have worked on Scrum of Scrum or have some idea, you can explain. Is it related to somehow close to Scrum of Scrum? Okay, I don't think okay. Thanks, Kaushik and Vasan, for your input. Is okay. Thanks, Karthik and Vashan, for your inputs. Okay, so we'll proceed from here, and what we'll try to think about the Nexus sprint review. So when I'm talking about Nexus sprint review, it happens at the end of every sprint. We will be having multiple teams. Each team will go for their own sprint. At the end of our Nexus, all the teams will not be having any team-specific review, but it will be one Nexus sprint review where we'll have an integrated demo. We'll adapt the product backlog and feedback on the integrated increment. So that's what the idea of Nexus sprint review. So I'm not going into details of the sprint review, or I'm not going to details of any of the events, but I'm just trying to correlate how it is different than normal Scrum and how you can actually start scale up your Agile. And this is a very simplest scale Agile so far I have observed. This particular event, the Nexus sprint review, is replace individual team or sprint review. So ideally, what we understood so far, it's having kind of a one level of structuring or scale up. And I think what you mentioned, definitely it's good fit for mid-scale kind of enterprise, not as a very large enterprise. Let's try to talk about the Nexus sprint retrospective. And so when we're talking about Nexus sprint retrospective, there are three steps we have as we looked into that particular diagram as well. So step one, identify issues impacted more than one team. Then what they actually do at the Nexus sprint review, this is at the Nexus level. Was any work undone? Did Nexus generate technical depths? Were all artifacts code integrated successfully? Was the integration happened every day? Was the software successfully built, tested, and deployed? Once this is done, the next step, what happens is the representative, they take the important inputs and go to the individual team. That's a step two. A step two, they identify issues impacted more than one team. So now the retrospective, maybe you can do it in a big room, or you can do it in a 3 steps, where each team, they talk about why did this happen? How can technical debt be undone? And how can the reoccurrence be prevented? That is our second step, where all these informations collected by this team. Now, once these discussions are done, the representatives from each team will again come, they identified actions, and they go for a step 3. That is, meet again, agrees on how to visualize and track the identified action items to be done. That's our sprint retrospective. Okay, I think that that is pretty much what we had. Now we can quickly go for some question answers. If anyone have on any areas that he wants to talk about on the highlights of an Nexus sprint retrospective. Anyone? Any questions? Prakash Charles, your hand is still raised. I want to see if we have anything from our YouTube. Okay. In YouTube, I can see when does Nexus refinement happen? That is from Sai Jose. So refinement is an ongoing activities. You can do twice a week, once a week, thrice a week, based on the number of teams you have and the amounts of backlog items you have, the time you are taking. The ideal goal is whenever you are doing a backlog refinement, try to make at least 2 to 3 sprints of backlog ready. As sprint refinement happen also, I'm going for Sai Joe's questions. As sprint refinement happen also, calendar of events, same for Nexus and sprint planning. Can you provide indicative calendar of events? I'm actually not able to understand what exactly you are asking here. Refinement is not so. For an example, if you are going for 2 week sprint, you are starting on Wednesday and ending on next to next week Tuesday. You can do your backlog refinement for an example every Monday and every Thursday. That's an example I'm just giving. You can go for 2 hours or 1 hours based on how much you need. All right, any questions from the Zoom call we have? Yeah.
One quick question about the retrospective.
Yeah.
When they talk about the time boxes, the only lines from the guide is it's similar to the Scrum events.
Right,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, let's say 1 month time box sprint. Let's say 3 hours is a retrospective. So now the Nexus retrospective is a three parts. So the 3 hours is for 2 sprint level combined 2 sprint level retrospective, and another 3 hour for Nexus retrospective. Like how it work? Like I'm not sure about.
Okay, great. All right, anyone have any other questions? I think we closed it pretty fast. We have 16 members in YouTube, and over here I can see 26 members. Anyone you wants to add some points based on your experience that you are working on Nexus, some of the important facts that you want to share with the team? Now?
Like I have another question. Like anyone have experience applying Nexus in software industry? I never seen.
Yeah, I also have never seen. I am actually the reason behind of this webinar is many people was asking for going for the SPS certification. So this is very simple framework. If you go through their Scrum guide and the Nexus guide, you will be able to clear that if you have a goal to go for an SPS certification. There are many different framework is going on. The fundamental, what I will suggest, stick to your Scrum guide and the manifesto. Scaling will be varies on their ways of working from the organizations to organizations. For Scrum at Scale or Safe or your dad, Lace, everyone will be doing it little differently, but all will be inherited from the primary Agile manifesto and Scrum guide. I can see Safe is actually combinations of everything possible in Agile, but I'm not sure about Scrum at Scale. Maybe they are doing it little differently for a large enterprise, but Nexus is pretty much for a mid-range, mid-size organization. It doesn't fit for very large organizations where you have different layers kind of portfolio, or third-party vendors are also involved. You have multiple teams coordinations that will be a problematic in this framework.
And Niladri, one more thing, like it's not going to be a successful in the case of distributed stage, distributed team. Like one team is sitting in. I'm talking
Your voice is
Only-
coming very low. It's kind of some breaks I am able to hear. Can
Am I
you come
audible
little?
properly, Niladri?
Yes, now it's audible.
Okay, I was saying like, is it? I mean, can we explore Nexus in the case of distributed team? Like one team is in different location. If I talk about
Yes,
one is
yes,
in US.
that can definitely be done. In my plan, I had to make some Jira structuring to show how Nexus can be configured in Jira, how you can do backlog refinement in one product backlog and distribute it into multiple teams. So now what will happen is, even if you nowadays everyone is working from home, so it's kind of a everyone is working as a distributed agile, whether you are doing safe, whether you are doing Nexus or Scrum or Kanban, whatever you are doing, everything is now distributed. Only problem, if you may see, because of the difference of the time zone, there may be a problem on the coordinations. Sometimes when India is working, US is sleeping, and the US is working, India is sleeping. In that point of time, you need to find out a overlapping time zone where everyone can do and come together and do some kind of integration work.
Okay.
Anyone, you have any other questions? Anyone wants to ask? Okay, I think that will be all
And
from my.
Niladri, one
Yeah,
thing if I can add,
yeah, please.
I believe there was a question that is anyone using Nexus in the industry?
Yes.
So just to add to that, I am aware that Singapore Airline is using Nexus and they have increased productivity by 350%.
Wow. And that's pretty
And there is
interesting.
white paper is also available for that. If you guys are interested, just search for Nexus in airline industry.
Okay.
And apart from that, there is one bank organization in Chennai. I forgot the name. I can check and share it later on with you, Niladri, if you want to pass to
Sure.
everyone. And they
Sure.
are using it. And again, they have increased productivity more than 200%. And it was on all the data which they published was based on evidence-based measurement.
Right. So you can share those information. Probably I'll be put it on the description of the this particular video and the website. You can actually get the link and download it from there.
I will do that, Niladri.
Yeah, I think I also agree to some extent that Nexus been used in used sporadically some places. But if you see the latest Agile report, which is published this year, less was 3%, but Nexus was not in the report at all. So it's still not that much used, but it's used to some little extent.